Frosted Paw watched in the distance, her tail twitching quietly. She sighed. She was really excited to go training that day, but she still had to wait a little longer. Her tail wrapped around her lean body, and the sun seemed to glint down on her ice-tipped fur. From the corner of her eye, she saw her mentor in the distance, and a little bit of joy pricked at her heart. Maybe it wasn't gonna be too long to train after all, she thought, watching as cats walked by, and even a fox that must have been a warrior long ago had seemed to wander its way in, but no one seemed to make a fuss of it, seeing as though it was a friendly fox, which made her quite curious. She saw her mentor in the distance yawn and steadily stretch. She got up and slowly began walking over. Her mentor, Silverleaf, was a senior warrior, but it didn't seem to show her age as though she was ready to become an elder. Instead, she seemed like she could almost be a queen, or that's how she presented herself. Her tail lashed excitedly, bursting up. "I'm ready to train," she thought. Silverleaf stood up and began walking over to her apprentice. "Are you ready for training today?" Her old voice seemed to rasp, and she suddenly flinched. Her mentor wasn't as young as she thought she was. "Yes, I am." The words seemed to sway out from under her. The words seemed to come out quite blissfully, and her tail seemed to spark up in excitement once more. She had already known most of the basics, and would be ready for her assessment soon, but not quite ready. Probably just a training session or two would get her good. That's what Silverleaf kept saying. A cat walked by, a bright red bandana, with a bright red bandana that seemed to make her be filled with awe. "Just to start off, we'll go around the border, and I want to test if you know the boundaries, and all of that stuff," Silverleaf rasped. "Okay," Frosted Paw said, her tail still bushed up in excitement. "Can we go now, or?" Silverleaf nodded at her apprentice and began leaving, motioning her apprentice to follow. She walked, following her mentor. The beautiful she-cat had long scars along her side, but just that one side. But it still was quite curious to her, and the question underneath her thick, fluffy pelt seemed to burn with anxiety. How did she get those scars? Would she have scars like that one day? Would she get in bad enough fight to have those scars? "So what direction is RiverClan in?" Silverleaf asked. Frosted'Leaf leaped up, racing towards the river, and water seemed to splash on her paws. "This way!" "Very good. Do you know where Sunning Rocks is?" Frosted Paw thought for a moment, and followed her mentor when a cat seemed to approach them. "What are you doing here?" The velvety words seemed to whisper to her. and Frosted Paw seemed to flinch. Is this cat stupid? This is ThunderClan territory, Silverleaf said, not too happy to see a rogue wandering on their land. I mean, this is our territory, Frosted Paw interjected. I get confused sometimes, the rogue said, his odd black and pale orange markings was quite hard to recognize, as she'd never seen it before, and it was quite an odd pattern. She watched as the cat walked off, and the fox she had seen in camp before was there as well, but Silverleaf ignored him and began padding off, lifting her nose around to smell any prey in the distance. So, about Sunning Rocks. Do you know where that is? Frosted Paw had nodded. Frosted Paw nodded. It's this way. Come on, I'll show you. Frosted Paw leaped off into the distance. The grass seemed to sway as the river had gotten closer. The bright sandy-colored rocks and shore made her heart seem to fizzle up, loving clan life. She watched the river. Each little undefined ripple was so unique to her. How smoothly it laid. Good, Silverleaf said, and a little something in the back of her mind made Frosted Paw feel like Silverleaf just wanted her to come over here for Silverleaf to take a nap on the large Sunning Rocks. She would stretch her back legs. And who does the Sunning Rocks belong to at the moment? Silverleaf laid on the rocks, the sun fading away as the dark, misty sky of night seemed to streak up. ThunderClan, I believe, Frosted Paw whispered, and looked at her mentor, seeing the old bones underneath creak every time they had a good run in the forest, and her heart seemed to pull. Was Silverleaf really that old? It seemed like yesterday that she'd just become a mentor, and Silverleaf was still good in her prime. We should probably head back now, the she-cat had said. And yes, correct, it does belong to ThunderClan, but RiverClan will always fight for it, even though it belongs to us. Both of the she-cats looked at one another. ThunderClan is quite strong, Frosted Paw said. I haven't seen a RiverClan cat on the border since a moon ago when we went out training. They both raced back in the forest. It was dark, and she couldn't see anything. A good thing for Silverleaf had trotted this way so many times that it was quite easy for her to find her way back. She walked into camp, cats looming in the distance. So many cats, Frosted Paw thought. She saw a small kit and sat looking up at the rock for a second, and then her gaze shifting towards the apprentice den. Silverleaf? Frosted Paw asked, and then got distracted and began walking around in circles. Silverleaf's attention was already sparked and asked, Yes? Frosted Paw was about to say something, then shook her head. Silverleaf doesn't need to know everything. She saw an apprentice walk into camp. 2 cats on the high boulder. Not the high boulder, but a boulder that was high. And a rogue that seemed to make its way into camp. Sometimes ThunderClan is quite confusing. Frosted'Leaf thought, and began to walk into the den, curling up in a small piece of moss. And she thought, will I ever have to be in a fight? What if I go to a gathering and make a friend? What if I become leader or deputy? And her thoughts seemed to spark, and her exhaustion seemed to pool out from her like a leaky faucet. She circled in the nest once more and stretched. I'm gonna take a nap. In the morning, all these weird thoughts can just drift off. Maybe I can even have my assessment. She scratched under her chin, and then laid down. Watching the cat socialize in the distance was quite calming, knowing that she wasn't in one of those situations. She was quite a quiet cat, and didn't like sparking up conversations with anyone she meets, unless they're her good friend, like Silverleaf. Silverleaf was a good friend, her only friend. She looked as the apprentice she'd seen walk into camp, trot over to the apprentice den and lay. And sit. Okay. Then lay. Frosted'Leaf's heart seemed to tug a little. Was this cat gonna ask for a conversation? Beg of one? Well, the cats usually don't beg, but every time that Frosted'Leaf was encountered with a situation, it made her quite anxious. Hi! Snowpaw said eagerly, her tail seeming to not stop twitching. Hello, she whispered, uncomfortability etching along her back. She stood up. I'm Snowpaw, Snowpaw said. And Frosted'Leaf slowly looked back, shut her eyes, and spoke. I'm Frosted'Leaf. And she laughed slowly. She looked up at Blind Eye, the deputy of the clan. Did the leader die? Silverleaf whispered, and then realized there was a meeting going on. Yes, sadly, Silverleaf asked. Silverleaf said, I didn't know that leader for a long time. But Blind Eye is going to get his 9 lives right now. The deputy's Lightstorm. Knowledge filled her head. All this stuff was so odd. Her tail twitched. All these cats will eventually die one day. Everyone's memories would be forgotten, and I need to be an apprentice mother. A cat in the kit next to her whispered, It's okay, it's okay. One of the cats seemed to reassure her. I think that's Cedar Kit, she thought. Let all cats old enough to catch their own prey gather beneath Highledge for a clan meeting, Lightstorm said. Hey, aren't you deputy? Blind Eye's just going to get his 9 lives right now, and Lightstorm seemed to be quite confused. No. Or, everything seemed to be confusing around her as she got lost in her thoughts once more. I wonder if Hazelpaw will be like to be my friend. Or maybe even best friend. We could be best friends. I mean, I'm back, One Eye whispered and slowly strode up, confidence brimming from him. We thought you were dead, Lightstorm said, shocked. I'm so sorry, blind star. It's okay. But I need for you to listen to me when I say I'm going to get my 9 lives. There was a bit of anger sparking underneath his words. She seemed to flinch. She never had anyone yell. And especially not Blind Eye. He was a calm cat after all. Silverleaf still walked, pacing under the high rock. And she watched with confusion. What was all happening here? Didn't Blind Eye she tried to say something, but was caught off guard. She sat next to Silverleaf, watching Lightstorm walk up to Blind Star once more. Do I need to go on any patrols, Blind Star? I could always send some out, if that's what you'd like. That is your job, after all, Blind Star whispered. When should I have my assessment, Silverleaf? Frosted'Leaf whispered and looked up at her mentors. Half blind eyes. We can do it in the morning. We can do it in the morning. Get some rest first. She walked awkwardly past the cat that was in front of the apprentice's den, curled up in the same spot Snowpaw had been laying in, knowing that it was probably a better nest, and she was just too distracted to find the best one. She laid her eyes shut, and a cat seemed to walk over her. She couldn't feel it, but she could sense someone there, like a lost spirit. Her breath tightened, and she tried not to feel like she was moving, not knowing what was above her. Was it a StarClan warrior? Was it a dark forest cat that she had heard tales of? But when she opened an eye, nothing was there. Cedarpaw laid next to her. You're an apprentice now. Did I really sleep through the meeting? Frosted'Leaf thought, looking at the cat, who was quite large for her age. She looked up. Hello, Frosted'Leaf whispered, and Cedarpaw flicked her tail and curled it in a greeting to the other apprentice. She felt the fox whisk past and saw the bright red fur. She got uncomfortable again. The fox was never named to her, but Silverleaf had said that he joined long ago when they were fighting for Sunning Rocks and they needed extra help. He had never left, and some cats even said that they could understand him. She watched the conversation. A small white and gray spotted kit had walked over to Cedarpaw. Her chest seemed to tighten, and excitement brimmed over her. "Is it morning yet?" She looked up to the sky, bright blue, shining between the tree tops. Cedarpaw walked off, not wanting to say anything else. "Silverleaf!" She sat next to her mentor, looking at her mentor. She seemed to look dead. She could see the breathing slowly, but her pelt seemed to look like it had frosted over in the night, and it was quite curious. "Silverleaf, it's morning, remember? It's time for my assessment." Silverleaf looked at her, confused for a second. And then the realization hit. "Ah, yes, it is. Ooh, let's start with your hunting assessment." She made her way out in the forest, and she had caught 3 mice and a snake. Silverleaf would be proud, but the snake still gave her a fright. And she walked towards camp, knowing that she had seen her mentor walk that direction right after she was designated to catch some prey. "I got 3 mice. I got 3 mice and a snake," Frosted'Leaf whispered. She seemed to sit numbly. She dropped the slippery green adder. As she dropped the slippery green snake that attacked her at Sunning Rocks. She seemed to shake slightly, and Lightcloud walked behind her, looking up a blind star. Silverleaf looked at Frosted'Paw, then looked over at her. Are you injured?" "No, I'm good," Frosted'Paw whispered, a shaky tone in her voice. "Moskit is now 8 moons old now, so Moskit, come up." She was quite confused by Blindstar. Was he going crazy? 8 moons? That's how old she was, and she's ready to become a warrior. Now she's just becoming an apprentice. I thought it was 6 moons. Who knows? Maybe she did something bad and had to stay in the nursery a little longer. I wonder who her mother is. You hear those birds? Everything seemed to bumble around her. Good. She looked at the prey and smiled at her apprentice. "You passed the hunting assessment." "Yay!" Frosted'Paw said, her tail bushed up, not as excited as the day before. She still seemed to be numb from the snake attack. What if she had died and Silverleaf never found her body? What if she was lost to the snake to devour? Why did the snake attack her? She heard Lion Star in the distance. "Do you swear to protect those in need?" "Yes," Moskit whispered, but still audible between the rapid rushing of cats. Her attention was sparked, and she looked up at the leader. She was quite bored, but knew that there was literally nothing else to do except do her fighting assessment. The fighting assessment. Silverleaf had Silverleaf mentioned it yet? Or was she just stupid? Why was she thinking so bad of herself? Does she really need to do this? Does she really need to become a warrior? What if she just ran away from rogues? Silverleaf stood up as the meeting ended. Okay, it's time for your fighting assessment, she whispered.